Today on Technado, we'll be talking with Christian Lees of Vigilante. We're also going to look back at the worst tech flops of the decade and maybe make a few predictions about the coming decade. That's all coming up on Technado, starting right now. Hello and welcome to Technado. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, joined as always by Don Pizzette. How you doing, Don?
I am doing swell, ready to wrap up 2019.
All right, and Justin, are you also ready to put a bow on the decade here?
What's going on? 2019's over?
Yeah, it's like Y2K.
Yeah, it happens once a year.
Oh, wow. Time does fly, doesn't it?
I saw a great little meme. It was, talking about dads who get to say, "All right, see you next decade." And then bigger than them was the "See you next millennium." It said like dads from 1999, and then at the top was this towering dad from 1 BC saying, "See you next era." Like, oh, dads.
Silly
You think they
dads.
did that back then?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Because the calendar, like when you were in
They
BC,
didn't know.
you didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it wasn't the same.
Then.
What was we used the Gregorian calendar, right?
Right.
Yeah. What's that calendar? Is that the lunar calendar?
The Mayan calendar.
Oh.
And then the world ended, right?
Yeah.
And then
And we started over. So this is a
Post MC.
AM.
I mean, there's other calendars in use today, right? Like
Yeah.
in India, they have a different
The
calendar.
Chinese
and,
New Year's at a different time of the year.
Yeah. And there's a Jewish calendar, right? Like a Hebrew calendar or something?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We are so cultured.
I tell you.
Yeah, well, our research team is on it right now.
See, the problem is we're trying to talk about relevant things somehow. When what we're supposed to be doing is a recap episode, right? We're
Right.
supposed to say, remember that time we
Yeah.
did, and then the wavy lines, and then it replays
This
some
is just
podcast.
that episode
Yeah.
where we just
Phone it in.
go back to the old episode. Yeah, because we're at the last podcast of the year now, and not only is it that, but it's the last podcast in this format. We're doing a little tweak to the format. I don't want to give away too much. We can talk about that maybe in a
tweaking
little
out.
bit. But we're gonna change things up. We're gonna bring in another face. And not get rid of any of these faces. Luckily, we're gonna be in a new room. It's gonna be a big time.
Will we get
so
to drink?
You're not drinking now? I have a Camelback on.
What's in it? Gin.
Yeah, this is not an earpiece.
I drink in my ear.
Directing.
I
Yeah,
tell you what, I did not realize how many calendars there are.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
Is there a Hebrew?
Egyptian calendar, the Julian calendar, Roman calendar,
NFL calendar.
Hob calendar, Old Persian calendar, the Genesis calendar, the Ptolemaic calendar,
Yeah, that's the one.
Coptic, Ethiopian, Berber, Gaulish.
All right. So anyway, we also have a big interview today. We're going to have Christian Lees, who is the CTO and CIO of Vigilante. So we'll be talking to him in a little bit. But normally at this point we talk about the news, but it's the special time, as Don mentioned, and so we found one article. And not that we didn't just stop there, but it's such a good article, and I think it's perfect for what we're doing today. So do you have it up there, Don?
Yes.
Okay. So we're heading over to gizmodo.com, and we're going to look at the most disappointing gadgets of the decade. And they use gadgets pretty loosely because we're getting into, full-on laptops or not necessarily apps, I don't think. But I haven't gone through this, and Justin hasn't gone through this. Don's looked at it, I think.
Yep.
But we're gonna kind of go through this.
And we can always add our
together.
own, because there have been
Sure.
plenty of disappointing devices.
Yeah.
Oh, I planned on adding my own. I've been trying to think of them right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I'm trying to think, like, what year was that? When did my Zune
Yeah.
stop? Was that in No, it was with an O. Yeah.
We should do the disappointing devices that didn't come out. Like, there's stuff I expected to have by now, and I don't.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to
Jetpacks.
talk about your phone computer
I'm not even
combo.
talking about flying cars, like just simple things.
Yeah, we had 2015, the Back to the Future year
Yeah.
in this, and I have not seen Jaws 19.
Where's my hoverboard?
I do not have a hoverboard.
Them cool shoes that actually happen, but
We're like $25,000.
yeah.
And by the way, we have hoverboards,
Which
but
are lame.
they are on the ground.
Yeah.
What is that?
In addition to, they have a weight limit, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's stupid.
And they catch fire.
All right, well, let's get started with item number one they have on here, 3D and curved televisions 2010. And I couldn't agree more with this because when they came out, 3D televisions, first of all, I was like, this is stupid. So everyone that comes to my home, I have to buy these like glasses for them because the glasses,
Yeah.
and they were passive and they were active, right? And the ones that were active were like $150 for just the glasses. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not coming to my house.
So this has been going on for decades, where every couple of years 3D flares up. Like, now it's time. And I remember as a kid, like in the early 1980s, some creature from the Black Lagoon would come on TV, and they would do a build-up the weeks beforehand so that you knew to go to the 7-Eleven and get your 3D glasses, or they'd come in the newspaper.
And those are the old school red and blue.
Yeah, and you'd pop those on, you watch the movie, and then 3D would die for 2 years, and then it would come back again. And so this time it was TVs, and I knew this one was going to die when like all the Black Friday deals were 3D TVs, and nobody wanted to wear glasses. But the curved TV was the one that killed me, because a curved computer monitor makes a lot of sense, right? You're sitting really close to it. The curve makes a difference.
Yeah.
But in your home, a curved TV, it's not big enough to need a curve.
Well, and you're also killing the viewing angle for anyone that's not straight on. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about most living room setups, there's someone off to the left, someone off to the right in a chair, and all of a sudden, they're not getting a good angle on one side of the TV. That doesn't make sense.
So I was a poor grad student during 2010. So I was like, we have a television. It's a CRT. It's missing it's got like a green splotch right here. We can still watch things. However, something about the curved television that kind of defeated the purpose of the thin panel television, because it's set farther out from the wall, right? Because the curvature.
Yeah,
so
didn't
now,
look nice.
How many people took out an eye walking by the
yeah,
curved television?
Now, have you seen the TVs that have where there's that backlighting that kind of changes with what's on? I've never had one of those.
They say it's like, well, it's not easier in the eyes, but it helps.
Some kind of ambient lighting that it creates, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth it or not. I mean, I
They
don't
have things
one.
you can buy that are just a USB into the back of the TV as well, but
Does the same
it
thing?
depends on it. Well, that just provides a light to kind of give it some depth, but the ones that you're thinking of that are integrated are actually showing the colors that are on the screen. If it's sunset, all of a sudden there's red.
It's funny. You're paying extra features. All they did was not put the shrouding plastic around the edge. Like, it's a new and improved ambient lighting. Bill, you messed that TV up.
Do you remember the Apple laptops that had the Apple logo on the back and it would light up?
Yeah,
They didn't have their own light. It was just plastic, and it was the backlight from the LED screen shining through. That was it.
Hey, that works.
By the way, when's the last time you watched something in 3D?
I avoid those movies. I don't.
They make me car sick.
Yeah.
And I can read and do all kinds of stuff in a vehicle, but I watched Alice in Wonderland, and I was like, I'm gonna throw up.
I saw that horrible Beowulf film in 2008, I think. That would be the last thing that I saw in
last
3D.
decade. See, I just had LASIK, so I had glasses, and doing the 3D, they had ones that went over, but it's just clunky, and so I never liked that experience, and now I'm just over it.
And then when you go to a 3D movie, you couldn't opt out, because if you tried to take the glasses off, you couldn't make anything out.
Yeah,
because it's like multifocal. Yeah.
It's no good. Well, I like to think about what was the weight of your TV when the decade started in 2010 versus now, and my TV is much bigger than it was then, and probably much lighter.
Yeah.
The plasmas. And all right, next up on the list here we have from 2011. Are they going one each year? Yeah, it looks like. We have the AMD Bulldozer, which I'm assuming, based on the picture, is a chip.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it from today, where AMD is really competing against Intel, and they're starting to get some server products out there. There's a Microsoft Surface running an AMD CPU. Like they're starting to make a really big difference today. But 10 years ago, or more now, back in 2011, they certainly weren't. Not more. Sorry, I'm doing horrible math today, but almost a decade ago, they were doing pretty bad. And the AMD Bulldozer processor was supposed to be awesome. But when it came out, I remember some people said it was sluggish. I didn't really think so, but it ran so ridiculously hot that it was just a bad processor. And what's that?
Nothing.
And they say that it really hurt AMD's ability to compete for years and years. But now today they've recovered from it. But I mean, it's been 8 years, so it took them a long time to get there.
Was this this kind of put them behind the 8 ball? I mean, they'd lost some market share from the early days with like Athlons and stuff, and then this was supposed to help them make up that market share, and then it just kind of put them further back, didn't it?
At a time when laptops were becoming more and more the standard, this processor could not go in laptops. It was just too hot.
Well, and this article says there was a point for about half the decade where Intel was over 90%, and it wasn't until this year that AMD got a processor into a big flagship product, which is the Surface Laptop 3.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see the processor wars as they go into the teens or the 20s here, and see who comes out on top. Maybe somebody
Roaring
new.
20s.
Maybe somebody we don't even know about yet.
Maybe.
Some
Dun, dun,
chip
dun.
guy in his garage right now. All right, next up in also in 2011, so it's not one per year. We have the Sony Tablet P, and this, I mean, you could almost lump all of the folding screen things, but this wasn't a phone, right?
Is it
this
curved on the back?
just a tablet.
So it is curved on the back. It was a weird form factor. So when you folded it, it was somewhat
It
elliptical.
looked like a clutch, like
Yeah,
a
like
woman's
nice-
clutch or a
yeah.
purse or something.
All
Do
right.
not put your lipstick in it when you close it. You're
No,
just
no,
crack both
but it'll
screens.
hold a driver's license.
When you said a
Sure.
clutch, I'm just in my head. I'm picturing transmission.
Yeah. So weird. Clutch went out in my F-150. Had a Sony Tablet P. Fit right in there. Odd.
Yeah, so this one, it was a foldable, but with the technology of the time, you still had bezels. So the two screens didn't touch. Like there was a pretty sizable gap in between. The technology wasn't ready then. The technology is not ready today. If you buy a foldable phone, you are just throwing away your money right now. So this one absolutely failed. Although they were a bit ahead of the game, but
Well, they
bad
failed
device.
first, and there's something to be said for that.
yeah. And here we are. 8 years later, they're probably laughing at these other companies releasing foldable devices and like, we got ours out of the way back then.
Yeah, we'll get there. And, honestly, the technology that gets us there will probably drastically change TVs, too. I remember seeing when we went to CES a few years ago, they had one of those screens that kind of rolled up into like a credenza. We'll get to those tablets that you unfold or unroll or...
Oddly enough, that's what I was working on in grad school.
Really?
Was flexible, like light-emitting devices using organics.
And that's why you were expelled?
No, I left willingly.
Okay. All right, next up, and
At
we
least
should,
that's what's in the report.
we should
Let's skip down the next couple
Yeah, I
of
was
ones.
gonna say,
are
we
like
should get
cameras and
get
stuff.
Brad, our producer here, to weigh in on the Canon EOS M in 2012, and then Nintendo Wii U, which I didn't have. Did you have that?
No.
We had one, yeah.
Did a Wii U? Okay. Yeah, I had the Wii, but
Skip
didn't
down
do
to the
any of ones.
Microsoft Surface RT in 2012.
Absolute garbage.
So
Yeah.
I got the first Surface when it came out, but I did not get the RT. I got
Right.
the
'Cause you're
full
smart.
one because. So what was the deal with that? I know it was a different chip and everything, and it was the ARM processor, but you couldn't multitask like you could typically multitask in Windows, right?
So it was limited so that you could only run 3 applications at a time.
Okay.
And then if you launched a fourth, it would just kind of like your iPad does it today. And people don't call it crippled; it's just how it works,
Yeah,
right?
it suspends it.
To save memory, it suspends if it can, and then eventually it closes it out.
Oh, okay.
And so, like if you run the Outlook app on your iPad, it is constantly getting closed in the background, which is super annoying. But with the RT, because of that ARM processor, because Windows was recompiled to run on ARM, there were basically no apps. You had to get your applications from the Microsoft App Store. And the only place more barren than Apple's macOS App Store is Microsoft's App Store. It's terrible. And so you basically had this tablet that could only run Windows and Windows stock applications, Microsoft Office, and that was it. So it was just, it was terrible.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When it first came out, not even all of Office worked.
Oh,
right?
yeah, not all
Yeah.
of Office. I don't think there ever was an Access version that would run on it.
Yeah, that was. I remember going. So what do I type in? Notepad.
WordPad. Yeah, WordPad.
Wee.
Yep.
Yeah, I worked at a company, and I remember Microsoft was actually paying us to build some apps or to convert some apps at the time because.
They were doing that for years. That didn't work. And they even tried doing a few other things to push people into their app store, and it just hasn't worked. And Microsoft finally admitted, look, our app store is just not going to fly and has not been pushing it like they used to. They've started releasing video games on the Steam platform now.
Really?
Yeah, so they are branching out and embracing other app stores. They have Microsoft Office in the Mac OS or in the iOS app store for the mobile devices. So they are branching out.
Teams for Linux.
Teams for Linux just came out, yeah. So Microsoft's really pivoted a lot, but this device was a total lemon, and just that one will go down in history as a bad device.
Speaking of lemons, did you have the Google Glass?
I don't. Is that the next one on the
That
list?
is.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Look
2013.
at that. Google Glass.
And that was supposed to be the first of many. And
When this came out, I wanted it. I don't know about you guys.
I did too. I signed up for it.
I wanted the technology, but then when I saw it, I didn't
even care about what
around.
So I signed because you had to sign up for it, right? And then I got selected. They're like, "Hey, we're ready. You ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready." Click. They're like, "Where's my $2,500?" I'm like, "I'm not that ready."
Yeah.
I'm
We
not
have different
that ready.
definitions of ready.
Yeah.
So 2 things popped into my head, right? The first one was I would love a GPS where I look out and I see the line on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I see the line turning.
Did it have that?
That's how it's supposed to work.
Oh.
Right? No, they do not have it, is the short answer. And then the second thing was I imagined being in a conference or talking to somebody you don't like and checking your email. Like,
They would see your eye just go and no, I feel like. But you had to touch it, right, on the side to...
so there
Toggle.
was a little hand control you could get, and
Okay.
eventually you were supposed to have eye tracking so that it would scroll a web page you were reading with just your eye movement. So those 2 features right there are really what augmented reality is all about.
When's the last time you saw someone wearing Google Glass?
Well,
Not on TV.
they discontinued it.
Yeah, but if
years
you had
ago
it,
now.
you still...
But then they did the Google Glass 2, but it was only internal, and so like you had to go to Google's campus in Mountain View to actually see people wearing them. But you knew it was dead when Sergey Brin stopped wearing his.
Yeah.
That was the nail in the coffin.
All right, so next up is Modular Phones in 2013. I remember this LG, those commercials. It had a like a game controller. There was a camera, another camera you could put onto it, like a speaker or something. There's all kinds of things.
Motorola had it was Project Aria?
Aura.
Google's, it says
Era?
Google's Project Aura.
Okay.
Moto Z.
So Motorola had Project Aria, and I just thought it was going to be awesome, a modular phone, and they weren't doing anything with it. And then Google bought Motorola.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, all right, finally, Google owns them. Google will do something with it. And then Google took all the Motorola patents and then sold off the rest of it and threw away Project Aria. So it's in the trash now. But wouldn't it be cool if, next year you decide, hey, I want a new phone screen. Or I have a 12 megapixel camera. I want a 15 megapixel camera. So let me just go buy the camera component and swap that out. Or I've got a Snapdragon 450. I want a Snapdragon 750. So you just swap that out. You don't need a whole new phone each year. Like the storage technologies haven't changed. The wireless modems haven't changed. Yeah. So it would be so cool if you just swap out components. But the phone companies don't want that, right? They want you to buy a new phone. And so there's not a lot of motivation behind getting it done. And at the end of the day, we don't have it.
And the Moto Z was more about the fun accessories that you'd want to add, like speakers and things like that. But then you're lugging around a bag full of, you want to take a picture? Let me go into my suitcase of phone parts, and so I can put the camera back on.
Yeah. What was the phone? It was by the guy who invented Google Android. Android was a separate company. Google acquired them. What was that phone called? Like it had a model number of AP1 or something like that. The something phone. It was like the Fantastic Phone or something. It didn't do well. That's why I can't remember its name. Yeah. But it had a special connector on the back, these 3 little copper leads or something. And they were promising all these accessories, but then the phone didn't sell well, and so the accessories died. So anyhow, there's a track record of this. Phone accessories are generally a waste of money.
Yeah, we have our research team looking into it right now.
I can't remember the name of the phone. It was the original founder of Android. He opened a company.
There's people screaming at their car radios right now.
HTC Dream?
No, it was not from a major company. It was like he had his own company that did it. It's probably on this list.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, we have the Apple Mac Pro 2013. Now, this is not the one that we continue to make fun of that has the touch bar.
Nope, this is the trash can.
This is the
is
the MacBook Pro. The Mac Pro. The new one looks like a cheese grater.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's a $55,000 cheese grater, by the way.
Did you see where the guys tried to grate cheese with it?
No.
It was...
Wouldn't it just melt cheese?
No, it runs some website, and it was like iFixit or one of those guys, and they said the new Mac Pro makes a terrible cheese grater. They took cheese and ran on the front of it.
So it does.
Yep. 'Cause it is $52,000.
I was going to say $52,000 cheese grater.
For the top end one, but I think you can get it for $4,000, $6,000.
Yeah, they're giving it away.
I think it was $6,000.
Yeah, or you can go to Bed Bath & Beyond for $5. Oh, if you have a 20% off coupon, even better.
Yeah, or you can get this one here.
Yeah, this one, I remember seeing it and thinking, man, it looks so awesome. Because it did. It looked really cool, but it was so overpriced that you could get comparable hardware in like the Windows world or Linux world for less than half the price. It was a total ripoff for just value. So it became more of a status symbol than a good item to buy.
Yeah, I never saw one of them open, but I feel like there's got to be a lot of wasted space in a round container, the way that a computer
It's
is
got
made
two
up.
boards in it that are kind of facing each other, and
And a lot of empty space, but maybe good for heat distribution. Who knows?
Sure. Or as an actual trash can.
Or now just flip it over. There you go. All right, next we have the Amazon Fire Phone 2014, and that's just an Android phone, right? They had their own,
right?
It's kind of spin-off of Android they were running, but yeah, they pushed that like crazy, and it never really went anywhere.
I don't understand why it failed, because there is a market for people who just want a cheap phone that runs some apps, and this one seemed to fit that bill. You know, Amazon can get it to you in 2 days.
Their tablets have been okay. I mean, they're not, iPad competitors, but they're hey, this is the one I get for my kid, or this is the one I read from, Kindle.
Browse the web, check your email. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure why this one totally failed, but it did. And
funky software. I mean, was it because they spun off their own Android version, so
UI on it.
That was probably part of it then.
And there was this weird thing where it had a bunch of cameras on the front of it, and it would use that to create like a 3-dimensional effect. And apparently that was really like it was supposed to be some crazy selling feature, but ended up being pointless. Yeah, it was a weird phone.
All right, Microsoft Band 2014. I don't even remember this.
I don't either.
It's like a weird Fitbit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Microsoft did something like normal where they cut the servers off, and so the band is now useless.
Yeah.
But
Basic fitness tracker.
I wonder if this one can also expose you as a philanderer.
Yeah.
Was this the one that gave everyone rashes, or no? That was
the secret military bases.
Sure.
Yeah. The rash one, that was the Pebble smartwatch, wasn't it?
Oh, there's Pebble. Okay.
Yeah, and is that on the list? Like those were supposed to
That should be.
They were good watches. Like for a smartwatch, they were super cheap.
All right. Is this one the one that will do it?
Here we go. Yep.
Justin, the Apple MacBook 2015.
No touch bar, but this one introduced the butterfly keyboard. Or not butterfly, but whatever the low profile keyboard is that's terrible that you guys both have.
It should be broken into tiny pieces. And
yeah.
I like the quote. The travel of the keys was so shallow, you could feel like typing on a rock, and a single crumb could make a key break.
Yeah. And so this was the first one to feature that keyboard, and then they went and put it into the MacBook Pro, which was really just an insult to everybody. And now they're backing off of that and going back to normal keyboards again. But this is where it started back in 2015.
Okay, I take umbrage with this next one. They call it the Nokia, but it's Nokia Lumia 950.
Very popular phone.
It was a good phone.
Yeah.
I love the UI. I mean, same problem with the Surface RT. It was the app ecosystem for Microsoft that just did not exist. But if it had the same apps that iOS did, which obviously it doesn't, I would have preferred that operating system over what you have in.
So many people told Microsoft, "Oh, we loved your phone UI. It just didn't have apps." They released a Microsoft launcher for Android.
Huh.
And so you could actually have that UI on Android, but it wasn't enough. People aren't using it. And it only goes so far.
Was it the Essential phone?
Essential phone. That's it. Yes.
You've been working on this that whole time?
Yeah, I've also been listening, but I was like, wait a minute, because he's had his hands in a lot of stuff.
Who was it?
And on a lot of people, right? There was that whole thing. He got,
what was that?
He got run out of Google.
Andy Rubin, he's been part of a bunch of tech companies, but he did get run out of Google because he had some sexual harassment out.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Oops. But yeah, the 360 camera for the Essential phone. There's a new one coming out, by the way.
No.
Essential Products.
Who is funding them? Where is he getting money?
They have Essential Home, and they have a new Essential Phone 2 or whatever.
All right.
Based on just my perusal,
I mean, this is a person
unverified.
This guy's in tune with what the market wants.
Yeah.
Clearly,
he's like, the Essential Phone 1 failed, but number 2, it'll work out this time.
Well,
the radically different Essential Phone 2 is on its way.
Worked for Google Glass.
Yeah.
All right. I assume, Don, we skip the Samsung Gear VR.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would lump VR and AR into the big disappointment of the decade, right?
Yeah.
Like we were promised virtual reality and augmented reality, and we have neither. And
I mean, AR's been better.
Well, like Magic Leap. Remember Magic Leap? That the big tech companies were putting millions and millions of money in. I mean, they had drawn tons of funding, and they still don't have a product out. And the demos that they release are really clunky, and it's terrible. AR is not anywhere. It's you get Pokemon Go.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's a big win. Big win.
AR.
I mean, that was the app of the decade.
Maybe.
Maybe you got to categorize like productivity apps versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried it. I installed the app. I played it. I ran out of little Pokeballs in 10 minutes.
We need that thing that the guy had with like 18 of them on a.
Yeah, and you also have to go to abandoned parking lots so you can get robbed.
Yeah, see, I didn't do that part, and so then you're just out of Pokeballs and the game's over.
You got to travel in groups.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. You're like,
safety.
With every copy of Pokemon Go is a firearm and a can of mace.
Oh, that's nice.
Turns out Pikachu can't stop you from getting stabbed.
Nope, sure can't. He goes, Pika Pika, you're dying.
All right, the BlackBerry Priv.
Priv.
Okay, first of all, there's a problem right there.
It's a dumb name.
But so this is for the people that said, "Hey, I like the new smartphones, but I want a physical keyboard," which there were a lot of for a long time. I think, people have finally given up on that, except for Adam Gordon, right? He still has one.
I will tell you, if I could get a phone with a physical keyboard, I would, because it is great. Like a tactile keyboard is such a good feature.
Was this the one that like magneted on, or was this?
No, this one slid
this
up.
one slid out. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the one that has the where it goes? You had that.
The Galaxy S8. Yeah, I had that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you pop the keyboard right on it, which was really nice. I still have that in my drawer at home.
That's a modular phone, like
ish.
If we were doing this podcast 10 years ago, BlackBerry was like a major force in mobile devices, especially in the enterprise, right? BlackBerry enterprise servers were everywhere. But they have just made bad decision after bad decision until today. Name a person with a BlackBerry. I mean, does Adam even have a BlackBerry
believe he
still?
does.
I think
he does.
Yeah, he's the only one I know, though.
So, they made a decision to give one last stab at some good hardware. It might even be this phone.
Doesn't the president have one too? Well, not Obama did.
President Obama,
because that's what was like the security.
But I think by the time he was out of office, they had finally switched him.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. But either way, they've now kind of reached the point where they just said, look, BlackBerry is going to become a software company.
Yeah.
And they've kind of given up on hardware. I don't think they have any current hardware out, as far as I'm aware. I'm kind of surprised they're still in business because they said, you know what, we need a new CEO. Let's let our CFO take a shot at it. And that's not a good decision for anybody. I mean, unless you're looking to liquidate your assets right away.
Wasn't Alicia Keys like a C-level exec at some point?
She was there. Well, they basically hired her as a pitch woman and gave her a title of CMO, I think, Chief Marketing Officer.
And
or
half
like
the
that.
stock, because that's the only way they could probably pay her.
Yeah, which I'm sure worked out spectacularly for her.
All right, I'm guessing Don had this next one, the Samsung or the Note 7.
Yeah.
This wasn't the Galaxy.
Or I didn't have the Note 7. This was the one that would spontaneously combust.
Yeah. This is the one that airlines
pocket
started saying, don't even bring this on this plane.
Right.
Because we're not taking off.
Yep. And
that was sad.
You'd think that Samsung would have taken a big PR hit on this. You'd think they would have given up on the Samsung Note name, but they haven't. And, now the Samsung Galaxy Note 10, I think, is out. Is it already out? It's already out, yeah.
I don't know. I'm still rocking.
And it's one of their best-selling phones. And so this, much like a huge data breach, has just died out in the news and gone away.
Yeah. I guess if you bury it in enough other press with the new launch that, it's probably hard to find those articles now.
Well, Don, I'm here to give you a piece of information. BlackBerry Key 2. 100% Android phone with a physical keyboard.
Wow. The BlackBerry
still available
E2.
from not like on eBay as a relic.
BlackBerryMobile.com. Yeah.
So they are still putting out a little bit of hardware.
A little bit.
I wonder if they're doing it or if it's like, there's some company that bought the Nokia name from Microsoft and they're rebranding phones as Nokia's.
Yeah, that was a bad investment as well.
Yeah.
There should be another article of worst acquisitions in tech.
That probably is one.
Wasn't there? Was it Yahoo that had like the huge valuation and then
turned out to be worthless? Yeah. There have been a few of those.
LG Sport Watch. I mean, honestly, anything if you're not the Apple Watch, basically could have gone on this list. I feel like
the last one is the Apple HomePod.
Yeah, and to me that was just a timing thing. I mean, you came out well after Alexa, came out after the Google devices, and it didn't offer. Siri is worse than either of those things.
Yes,
and so
if
that's your choice, you've got I want to say either Alexa or OK Google or Hey Siri. If the HomePod had Alexa integrated,
Yeah.
it might be better. Who knows?
There's a fourth option. None of the
Cortana?
above.
Oh,
Well, I guess technically there's a Cortana.
there's a fifth option.
Yeah, that's on your Surface RT.
Yeah,
I think the thing that really hurt the HomePod was that it was $350. It was expensive,
yeah.
right? Versus an Amazon Echo is under $100.
Yeah,
And it's
Echo
bigger.
Dot you can get for like $50 or something.
Yeah,
later
they're
on.
like
Yeah.
$39. Yeah. I mean, this is bigger, so I assume it's a bigger speaker, louder.
Yeah, but I think the people who are willing to pay $350 for a HomePod are the same people who would pay for a quality audio
Go
system.
like a Sonos or something.
Yeah, or
that
you know,
point.
in-house audio, speakers in the ceiling, that kind of thing.
And one of the features of this is that you were supposed to be able to kind of network them and do audio like that. We have a couple back in. We have a big kind of bullpen area for our sales floor and our marketing and stuff back there. And we had, I think, 3 of them at one point of the Apple ones. And you found you could sync them up where the music would be the same, and it was like an echo chamber. I mean,
Oh, they were slightly off?
they were slightly off, and
Oh,
but it
that
was
was-
just enough where it's just like,
Oh,
no,
man, that would cause horrible dissonance.
it
Like,
is not
"Is that-
usable."
You feel that?
They had that problem. That was what delayed the AirPods coming out.
Oh, but from ear to ear they would
Yeah,
have?
because normal headphones where you got a wire between them, it's not a big deal. But when you got 2 separate devices, you got to keep them in sync.
yeah.
And so they wrote a special algorithm for it and a different protocol. Like it has to do a lot of stuff to keep that in
Well, we
sync.
tried that the other week here where we were trying to listen to ourselves in our own ears, and I couldn't even speak. You can go back and find that episode.
Yeah, he's just going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like most episodes.
I was fine. I was so used to blocking you guys' voice out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's my own voice. Is what,
Yeah.
what-
I'm like, man, listen to that silky smooth voice talking to us.
this guy's copying me.
So I have to admit, I'm surprised something's not on it that
that?
I own. You remember the Ouya game console?
Yeah,
I have an
goodness.
Ouya.
The funding that they got was ridiculous. They
Yeah.
they even got on the shelves in Target, and then it just died.
Yeah, so I bought one. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to load some. How does this work? I spent like 4 hours trying to get a game to launch on it, and I was like, I am upset. So
Just take it back to Toys R Us.
I bought it at Target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, like all their servers are shut down, so it's useless hardware, right?
Yeah, I
or
think
can
so.
you mod
I think
it?
it's got it.
Can you homebrew it or
I
something?
think you can mod it. Yeah, I haven't played with it for a
I wonder
while.
what those are going for on eBay. Can you get them for $5 now?
I should check too. I've still got my Surface, my original Surface at home, which I'm like, I guess I'm keeping this because it's the only Windows computer if I ever need something in my home. But
Yeah. Well, have you guys seen the Google Stadia?
I haven't played with it. I've read about it.
That's their streaming console, and so it's out. I think it costs $120 or something like that. And you know it's going to fail. Like I don't know why Google's even bothering with it, but they've released it. They keep pushing it, and so 10 years from now we can talk about how worthless the Stadia is.
Yeah, I'm looking for. Yeah, what's launching at CES in 2020 in January that will be the product on the list? That'll be fun to look at.
Well, we've looked back and we've saw some horrible failures, but there's a new decade getting ready to roll around.
Yeah, well, not on this list too. It's Technado. Which up
The
to this
horrible
point,
failure of the
horrible
decade.
failure,
Yeah.
but the change is coming.
Oh.
Oh man, exciting.
But we can't say anything
Let's not.
about
Yeah,
that.
let's not give away too much. You know what? Let's do the interview and we'll come back and we'll talk about that and other stuff. So we've got Christian Lees, like I said, CTO and CIO of Vigilante. We'll talk to him right after this on Technado.
Are you a career changer or a budding tech pro who's looking to start their career in IT? I'm Wes Bryan, and along with my fellow IT Pro TV edutainer Cherokee Boos, we've just shot a new show just for you. Each week, we'll dive into topics to help you launch your career in tech. Watch how to get started in IT on YouTube now. Just head to youtube.com/IT Pro TV to watch and look for new episodes every Saturday at 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
All right, welcome back to Technado, and it's time to talk with our guest now. Joining us all the way from the desert out in Arizona, we have Christian Lees with us today. Christian, how you doing?
Honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you too. And so you're currently the CTO at Vigilante. So why don't you start by just giving us a little background on Vigilante?
Vigilante is an organization. We strictly focus on dark web researching. We've done it for roughly 8 years now. If I had to quantify what our differentiator is we're heavily focused on human intelligence. So we actively scour the dark web, or I like to think of it as the threat actor environment. And there's a lot of people out there that says, hey, we do cyber through automation, but if there's anything I've learned over my tenure, is the dark web is a living organism, and it's best to do it as a human.
So help me out with the business model a little bit. Are you hired by companies to go scour the dark web and make sure that they're not, their data isn't exposed somewhere, or are you doing government contracts? How does that work?
Typically, we do not serve the consumer space, so we work directly with brands. So our role is to be out in the dark web, in the threat actor environment, and we take prioritized intelligence requests from the brand, right? So they help guide us through whatever it is that they're researching. Oftentimes, we simply retrieve data, and we're unsure about its value, so we give it directly to them, and that can further lead to more investigation. So primarily, the brand sets the intelligence request.
So what kind of data are you finding out on the dark web? Is this like where you hear about published databases of user account information, or are you finding intellectual property? What is it exactly you're looking for?
Great question. I think about that a lot. Like, what composes our digital identity? And unfortunately, it's everything, right? It's, technology is moving so fast. It's everything about you. So depending upon the brand that or the former governing organization that had this data may have had an incident, we're seeing everything. SSNs, a tremendous amount of credentials, medical records, and there is scenarios where it's intellectual property, right? Sometimes developers do their job too well and publish it into the repository and publicly facing. So we come across all types of data.
And are you finding it fairly easy to acquire that data? I know some of it goes off on like dark web auction sites or behind various gated forum type areas that are difficult to get in. I imagine you have a whole team that is working to just constantly get into those environments. Are you being pretty successful at that?
Yeah, funny, interesting question. And when I first started doing this, and this was roughly about 10 years ago, I thought about it, and I'm like, what's the most unscalable portion of this, offering? And initially it was really around collections and, that human element, right? So it's important to have native language speakers of the forums, right? Eastern Europe, heavy focus. So these are individuals that have really put a lot of care into their personas and gaining a lot of access to oftentimes very, very, very closed forums, right? And these are forums that simply require humans, right? And computers just can't get in and harvest this data, right? The threat actor is very good at evading that type of activity. So we see so much data that it's sometimes difficult to even ingest it.
So for you guys, you're operating like right on the edge. We always think in terms of like good guys and bad guys, and you guys are the good guys, right? But you're operating in an environment that is absolutely built for the bad guys. So do you have rules of engagement or like certain boundaries that you won't cross? Like, and how do you even come about figuring out what those rules would be? That seems really challenging.
Well, the objective is to protect as many people as we possibly can, right? And that's the only way to do that is to poison the well, right? Render the data unusable, right? So get it back into the brands, have them remediate it. In the closed forum, that's very exotic scenarios, right? There is a tremendous side of it that's automation, right? Everyone knows open source, right? And we have a lot of automation in open source, right? Reaching out into the pay sites all over the world, different forums, and ingesting that. Interestingly enough, about 3 years ago, it dawned on me, as if we don't have enough problems, right, with threat actors. But then all of a sudden now, we have everyone just mass exodus to the cloud. And in the last 3 years, there's a huge volume of data that I think of as jeopardized, right? So misconfigured S3 buckets, Azure blobs, and misconfigured Mongo databases, misconfigured everything, right? It's the mass exodus to the cloud has made it particularly difficult on top of the threat actor. So we see a lot of that as well.
Now, I know you can't share any client details with us, and you want to maintain their privacy. But can you give me an example of like what's the worst thing that you found out there for one of your clients?
Well, that's really difficult to say, right? Because we see everything, unfortunately, right? The ease of lighting this data, it's incredible technology, right? Technology is moving so quickly, but it's so easy to just, click, 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 light your data and boom, it's there, right? I get particularly bent out of shape when we make efforts to protect people and, we contact the organization and no response, right? And the data is still up. And our guys that are out there looking for this data, they are just persistent, right? Like get this down. So I get a little bit out of shape when people don't respond and don't take down the publicly available data.
I'm glad that you clarified, Don, of what's the worst thing he's seen of their clients' data, and not just the worst thing he's seen on the dark web, because I don't think I want to know some of the horrible things you've come across. But I'm curious, how closely do you work with law enforcement when you see things out there? Is that something you make reports and get them involved, or is that kind of
Absolutely.
Fruitless waste of time?
No, absolutely. When the scenario is we can't get the data down, or it's just a really volatile thing, immediately work with law enforcement. Absolutely. And man, those guys are spectacular. And I've had a long career of working with them, and those guys are good.
So you've had situations where they've actually been able to go out and track down, the people responsible, or are they more trying to help just get that information down off the dark web as well?
Well, when it goes into the investigation, I don't see a lot of that. Yes, we have collaborated with law enforcement, but typically it's just to get that data down.
This just keeps reminding me of Batman. Like you're a vigilante, right? But you're working for justice. You're on that precipice of like the dark and light, and you work with law enforcement. Do you by chance know a gentleman named Jim Gordon?
What kind of car?
Oh, Jim.
Yeah. Jim Gordon. He's crazy. Crazy guy.
So,
go ahead.
I'm curious. Like there's a lot. The dark web is in the news. Companies getting breached. Data getting out there. That's all over the place. What motivated you to get into this business? To say like, I want to be more proactive and help people get out there and hunt that information down.
Well, I started out in college and got a computer, and it just kind of has gone that direction, right? I was always interested in security, and of course, as a young person, I read like Blacklisted 411 and 2600, just crazy about that stuff. But I got lucky, right? I always say I'm luckiest man alive, lucky to be alive. And I just got into security. I was at a major telecommunications company, had exposure to networking, always just kept chipping. I'm like, I want to go into security. And even then, people kind of viewed security as like black magic, like, you're that weird guy, or, just not a lot of attention on it. But I just worked my way through it and did security engineering for 10, 12 years, working with law enforcement on specific cases. And that's kind of led me to where I am today. The underground economy, right? In early 2000, no one hacked really. And then it's just like that. It just changed, right? All of a sudden, DDoS extortion appeared, and it's just from there has exploded.
So One thing I've always been curious about, and you're probably the perfect person to ask, is we've heard from a few different companies that are kind of operating the same space as you, that they're trying to get ahead of data breaches to spot the breach before it goes and hits the general public. If I were to engage with you, so let's say I had an enterprise, I don't know, several thousand employees and hundreds of thousands of customers and data and so on, and I reach out to you and I say, all right, I want Vigilante to keep an eye out there for me, look for my data, help me remediate if that data is out there. If this is a new engagement, you don't really know what my data looks like. So what's that first step? Because I imagine you have to familiarize yourself with the data that we have in order to spot it. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, the ideal scenario is the brand has a kind of a digital fingerprint of what they want, right? So I mean, we technically we have a few things, right? We have probably their realm, their domain. We do not have an on-prem device. We're not like, we have this device that smokes and, strobes and alerts. And I mean, the companies, they have enough of that with alert fatigue, right? It's just crazy how much they have too much to do. So the ideal scenario is the client or the brand is actively engaged with us, right? We know over a longer term engagement, we have more fruit, right? If we can actively work with that person that's doing the threat hunting, that can really help guide us as to where we want to be. Hey, we need you left up here, in center there, etc. But at a bare minimum, just the realm, the domain itself leads to a tremendous amount of data and attribution. All of the end users of companies, they oftentimes don't really think about data hygiene, right? They go out and create accounts with their brand, email. It's data hygiene that immediately comes to light, and with more engagement, we can go further into that deep threat research.
And have you had any success? I know with most companies, like if their user database has been compromised, they just do the immediate reaction of, all right, we're going to reset everybody's password, we're going to enforce multi-factor, right? So they take the steps to correct it. So on the remediation side there, that's good. But at least from my experience, I don't think I've heard of anybody being able to take down information once it's already out. Have you guys had any success in that space, or is it all about just kind of moving on?
Well, I mean, it's the threat actor environment. I kind of think of it as an organism, right? It's alive. It reacts, right? It adapts. So it's pretty difficult to take data down from an illegitimate network space, right? So it's really about rendering the data harmless, right? Having the end user remediate it. So pretty difficult in that kind of unstructured world.
All right. So if people want to maybe reach out and find out a little bit more about you guys and look at using your service, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, welcome to go to vigilante.io. And we'll also be at all of the major security conferences. So you're welcome to reach out to us and connect.
I'm curious though, do you ever come across things on the dark web and then reach out to potential customers and go, hey, saw your stuff on the dark web. Maybe we should talk.
Very rarely, because you don't know if you're going to get rocks or love. It's hard to say. Ambulance chasing is probably not what we do best, right? It's about protecting the brand and doing that contextual knowledge around them.
Yeah, Batman would only go when they put the signal up.
Right.
Yeah, but he was also lurking around for Gotham's best interest.
He was watching the bad actors all the time, but he wasn't, going to people's house after they got broken into.
But we can agree that he was a vigilante.
Oh, sure.
With the public good of heart.
Yeah.
I've never heard that quantifying this to Batman, but it makes sense. It's great.
Yeah, let's update the logo here and get
Warner Brothers is upset.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Hey, well, Christian, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to, we've talked a lot about breaches and things, as Don said, with a lot of companies, but, never really talking about on the dark web side and what happens after that information is out there. So thank you for taking the time and enlightening us a little bit there.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
All right, and thank you everyone for joining us, but stay tuned. We have more Technado. It's coming up right after this.
Will you be in or near Gainesville, Florida anytime soon? Then you should come see IT Pro TV. Make plans to visit the studios. Get a tour. Meet your favorite edutainer. See what goes on behind the scenes every day to bring the best of classroom learning to IT professionals around the world. Simply chat with the member services team on the IT Pro TV website and let us know when you'll be visiting. We'll see you soon.
All right, welcome back to Technado, and thank you to Christian for that interview. And man, it's the end of the decade. We're here. We've come to it now.
Wow.
We're at this is the final episode, right?
I feel like we've achieved so much.
I assume most people listening to this at like 11:59 on the 31st. This is pretty exciting.
Because remember, what you're doing then is what you're going to be doing the rest of the year.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever.
You know what I'm excited about?
What's that?
The Nobel Peace Prize that we're going to get for our work this year.
Absolutely.
No, it's a JD Power Award.
Oh, that's right.
That's all we
It's
want.
the GD Power Award. Calm down now.
Give me that JD Power Award over there. Best in class.
What's your predictions for the coming year?
Yeah, I hope I still have a job. I don't know. I mean, we did this last year.
Are we
going to
see Microsoft Linux down?
No.
I
Oh wait, you're going to a conference.
I am going to a conference, and I am surprised it didn't happen in 2019. I'm gonna have to roll it over to 2020. We are destined to have it.
And the conference is like the big unveiling, right?
I don't think so. I think it's too small for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a Microsoft Linux thing.
Yeah, it's the WSL team and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's in March, so we'll see what happens.
Could be. What I do know, my prediction is that we're going to have a great webinar starting in the new year, which is on Thursday, January 16th, 2020. It is Are You Ready for DAS? Part 2, a deeper dive into WVD, which is Windows Venereal Disease. That is Thursday, January 16th.
It's a horrible malware.
And that is why Mike Roderick is talking about it as an expert in WVD.
Penicillin.
Yeah. I'm assuming he's not listening, because it's
WVD
midnight
survivor.
and he's already asleep.
Yeah.
But we had a great webinar for Desktop as a Service, and we had so many questions that we said we got to do another one because people were asking so many things we didn't have time to get to. So that's what that's going to be with Mike and Wes. And if you head over to itpro.tv/webinars, you can check that out and sign up for that. You can also scroll down on that page and see all the on-demand webinars in the past, including the original Are You Ready for DAS? The first one before you get to the next one. I'm saying it right,
Yeah.
Dustin? That's how you told me to say it?
Are you ready for DAS?
DAS, yeah.
And are you ready for DAS? The Reckoning. WVD again.
My suggested title that was rejected was Tap That DAS.
I believe they didn't let that pass.
I'll tell you what, if we'd had Mike holding a beer like an old Milwaukee's best, I'd be like, tap that dash. I'd have watched that. I don't even want to know about it.
Bring back the taxidermy squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun.
Tap
For
that
the
dash.
record, it is Desktop as a Service.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Yes, it is.
And it's Windows Virtual Desktop.
Desktop.
Not Windows Venereal Disease, as some people say. People are saying. That's what
Yeah,
they're saying.
I heard it. I've heard it too. I can vouch for it.
Out of my mouth. And while you're on the internet, why don't you head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. That's where you can find out about IT Pro TV and all the personal and business plans available from IT Pro TV. You can use the coupon code Technado30 at checkout. Get 30% off the lifetime of your subscription. Or if you have a team, Don,
Teams. It's my favorite feature. If you want to train yourself and your entire team, there's real value.
For teams.
Yep, for teams.
All right. Well, good times, guys. Happy New Year. And it was great 2019, and hopefully it's even better 2020. Yep, don't say it back. That's fine. All right.
I thought we were going to sing Auld Lang Syne.
My goodness, you're a little touchy. You're like, don't say it back. I didn't even have time to think.
You were just looking at it.
Yeah.
Do we need to hug our way out of this?
Yes, not.
I thought you were still talking, and then you got all defensive.
All right. In the new year, we're going to switch.
Are you having dash problems?
I am. You are pain in the dash. We We have the new podcast changes. Right now, podcasts come out on Mondays. We're going to be moving that to Thursdays. So look for the new shows to launch on Thursdays in 2020, and every Thursday we'll be getting you this great DAS content, and we're gonna have it's Daniel Lowry. Can I say that yet?
You just
I
did.
did.
You just did.
But that's our new addition. And that's why we have to move.
We were trying to get Bobby Brown. Now we got settled.
Yeah. But apparently he's violent. And
Yeah,
It'll work out fine.
I mean, we're so close to Miami. We should be able to get enough cocaine for him.
Yeah, but I mean, people will know if it happens to me and you. They'll be like, man, they slimmed down something fierce.
That'd be great.
Like what happened to him? Be like, I don't know, man.
That should be my New Year's resolution. An 8-ball, what is that, a week maybe? I don't know. I don't know how drugs work.
Yeah.
At all. But, yeah. All right.
Have a wonderful New Year.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time right here on Technado.